Yeah, that's good.
It's not like women don't join the military at all. We see that though there are smaller numbers perhaps than men who end up signing up for conscription within the army, we find that there is a huge attrition rate for them for like basically because of institutional discrimination between them, because of them, things which I will be talking about later within my speech. Our policy is very simple, right? We're going to basically have a quota on the number of women who are within the high-ranking officers within the army. This number and this percentage it will be pretty much dependent on like the conscription rate of the number of women who go in. It's possibly not fair to say, you know, if it's 20% women should be 20% of the people there should be women, if you know, like if you don't have that number of women signing in on the army to begin with. But we don't see that's really the point of this debate. The point is whether or not we should have that affirmative action for women or not, and whether or not this is in any way, you know, it's feasible, and whether or not it is in any way what do you call it, or whether or not it's in any whether or not it's in any way legitimate and morally ethical for us to put it there. I've got three things I'll be talking about today. Firstly, I will elaborate more about the problem. Secondly, I'll talk to you about how this policy is then necessary in order to create very specific positive effects. Thirdly, why will no other kind of policy in order to clamp down on discrimination of women within the military work? First point of the problem, right? We see that basically this is a self-perpetuating problem there, right? Because there are so few women on the top, they can't fight the influence of the other men who are the top commanding officers in order to be able to create a safer, healthier environment for women there. They're usually shushed out, they're usually booed. We see that basically this is a lot like what happens in like the debate circuit, right? Where it's really in any way, the rest of Asia, I don't know about China, it's a really sausage dominated area. Even if you don't have like specific discrimination whatsoever towards women, this is a very pernicious one. That's what makes it even harder to fight, because you can't point to any instances in which the guy basically said that, oh, you shouldn't be in the military outright to your face, or these kinds of things to your commanding officer. What happens instead is that they create an environment that makes it very difficult for women to even want to stay within the army. For instance, if they all gather around together to talk about guys, to talk about perhaps objectify the women who are around them, i.e. you're not going to be included in these kinds of conversations. You're not going to have actually the kinds of friendships, the kinds of bonding that you usually need in a workplace, especially a very harsh workplace like the military, to be able to even survive in your job. We see that these things are extremely important, and these things are, these kinds of gender discrimination is what hurts women more than anything else, and it's also very difficult to beat. So why is this policy then necessary? Hold on a minute. Why is this policy necessary for to solve this problem? Right? I'm going to be talking about two things: how basically we incentivize women to stay, how we protect women to stay, and how then we stop that vicious cycle of women not being able to go to the top at all, and therefore not being able to solve the problem. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I think that's because the harsh environments in the military currently it is not beneficial to the women, so that's why you have this policy. But does it mean that you want to lower the standard in the military, that their training or their harsh environments?
Right, thank you. No, we're not saying that. We're saying that everybody was basically saying the harsh environment that women go through is an entirely different one from the one men go through, and that's why they need this kind of protection, right? Because men don't get their gender discriminated simply because they have a dick down there. We see that women basically are discriminated for the basis of their sex, and this is exactly the kind of harsh environment we want to stop, right? We understand all other effects and harshness of the rest of the job scope. We see that both men and women go through that, but women go through that something extra, and that's why something extra needs to be done about it. So let me talk about incentives, right? And this is, let me talk about incentives first. This is how we basically make it worthwhile for a woman to even want to stay in the army at all, right? Rather than in status quo, she lives in the fear of not even being able to get promoted simply because of, her gender. And that's why the attrition rate is so high. One, you don't have friends in the army. Two, you aren't even sure about your job prospects. So you aren't even sure whether or not it makes it worthwhile for you to stay in the army. You don't get out at all. And that's what, and and then either you leave or you're stuck in the lowest ranks of the army that they care to place you in. We think that that's basically what creates a vicious cycle I talked about earlier, right? Basically, where women can't get on top, they can't enact the changes that are needed to be able to solve these kinds of problems and make it more worthwhile for women to stay. We need a quota to be able to tackle this, to at least create an incentive. The women will feel, hey, at least a certain number of women will get it to the top. I could be one of them. I may as well stay in the army and enact the changes that I really, really want. Secondly, protection, right? And this is where we keep women safe. In what way are they not kept safe today? We see that women are forced to adopt all sorts of behaviors that are usually unnatural to their personality. And this is, again, what happens a lot in the debate circuit. You're told you have to be a lot more aggressive, perhaps, because women are generally soft-spoken and can't deal with the harsh environment of the army or the debate circuit. And so they have to adopt personas that force them to do things that they don't really like. This doesn't create, this again forces them to behave in behaviors that they don't really like. They end up working perhaps twice as much as all the other men there in order to hopefully get that job. We want to ensure that women don't have to go through these kinds of unfair hardships if the men don't have to do so as well. At least with a quota, they know that they are safe, that they won't be picked on simply because, they were 1 minute late for work, while, the rest of the army wasn't the rest of the guys in her back bunk who were like 5 hours late, and she's the one who's singled out for scolding, things like that. We see that protection at least ensures that ensures that they are able to stay true to themselves, as well as they don't have to go through unfair sorts of discrimination and feel the need to prove themselves all the time. Thirdly, why will nothing else work, right? And this is the crux of the thing. Because you need to have women on the top before you can enact any other kinds of changes there. You need to have their voice, you need to have their representation before all sorts of other policies can then follow. Right now, that voice is being shut out simply for the simple fact, I talked about this earlier, protection, right? Because they don't have that safe environment. The few women who actually make it to the top are usually gung-ho and behaving in ways, basically behaving as alpha females, or in this way, adopting alpha male behavior, saying that they have to be really, really bloody aggressive because that's the only way they can keep their job. If they're seen trying to be soft, if they're seen trying to enact all sorts of things for women's rights and things like that within the army, they are very likely kicked out. That's why protection here is so important. That's why how we even are able to enact any sort of changes to begin with, because now the women on top have the protection to be able to fight for the women down below. For all these reasons, to say, go with open government.
Thank you very much for that speech. We now invite the first speaker for opposition, the leader of opposition. Yeah.
Thanks, Mr. Speaker. In today's motion, the opening government told us it is worth for the woman who wanted to stay in the army, right? And we support this point. But you worth to stay in the army doesn't mean that you worth the quota, right? And the second argument is that. You mentioned about the discrimination. You said it will hurt the woman. We don't think this policy will really protect women, and I will explain it in detail later. And the third rebuttal is that even though you impose a quota for the woman in the top ranks of the military, but it has the stateable amount. You cannot provide a large amount quota for the woman, right? And in the military, the majority are still the men, and the women still need to be led by the men, right? Well, here comes to my first argument. First, we need to know the importance of the top ranks of the military.
No.
Okay, no thanks. And first, we need to, in that position, you need to make the right decision. You have the powerful expressions, and you need to considerable, and you need to convince, right? And take a simple example. Most of the famous CEOs in the company, like Apple, IMS, or else, most are the men, right? Because they are sometimes more rational and more calm than the woman.
Oh.
And we need to trust the people's decision. Why we choose the man to be the CEO? Why we choose the man to be the leader in those important positions? Because we believe the man. We believe the man. Sometimes they can make more rational decision, right? And we need this rational decision for the army. And no, thanks. And the second is that to be the top ranks of the military, when he or she we needed to prevent the people from the potential harm, and he must win the great honor of the people. And the woman, we all know in the most of the common sense, the woman, no matter in the physically or in the mentally, they are weaker than the men, right? Oh, okay, no thanks. So we believe that the more important the top ranks of the military are, and the more important that we need to put this position for the men, but not for the for the men in the first concern. And the second argument is that we don't think this policy is really beneficial for the woman, because in the first, we have no necessity to give the quota for the woman, because the woman can get it depend on his ability, depend on her knowledge and anything else. There were several circumstances. First, if a woman available to get this position, okay, right, we admit, and you can compete with the man, and if you successfully win the man, then you can get the position, right? It is more work for the woman, but not just impose a quota for them. And after you win in the position, also through the position, the man will regard you as maybe a superwoman. Why not, right? And when you really win the man's recognized, there is also good to the government, also good to the army, and because just I mentioned it just now, the military needed to have the great honor, right? And the next circumstance is that if you are not available, maybe in the competition, you lose than the other men, and also it is unfair for those qualified men, right? Because they are more qualified than you to get this position. We cannot, because of the discrimination of the woman, and then lose the right or the fairness or the respect for the men to gain this position, right? So we need to take this policy into the deeper consideration, whether we need to impose a quota for the woman in this very important position, right? And I'm glad to oppose.
Right, thank you very much. We now invite the second speaker of the opening government team, the Deputy Prime Minister.
Yes.
I just realized all women in this room.
Yeah, I know. In which case I can go ultra bitch feminist without being like... I told you today about how women are systematically discriminated within the military, right? Where they leave not because they're incapable, or rather, in fact, because they have to work a lot harder than men to be able to get in the same positions as men. Something that's seen in, something that's especially seen in the military because there's so many men and there's so much discrimination they have to fight. I told you about how basically the environment for them is one that is hostile and unhealthy, and it's not something we'll ordinarily put a person through. In fact, we don't think any person should be made to feel that uncomfortable comfortable within their environment, within their work environment, right? And that's why there's such a high attrition rate. I told you how this policy specifically combats both. But what do we hear instead? We heard extremely essentialist arguments that basically is making my inner feminist rage right now about how women are physically weaker than men, that women are irrational and are therefore less capable than men in holding these positions. We reject all of these characterizations. We believe that women, especially women who enter the military voluntarily, are just as capable as men, usually more so because it takes a hell lot of guts for a woman to even want to do such a thing. 3 things I'll be talking about in which I will then defend my case while adding new material as well as take down theirs. Firstly, are women capable or not of holding authority? Secondly, does meritocracy exist? Thirdly, is this unfair for qualified men? So on the first point, right, are women capable of holding authority? And this is where we heard a lot of very essentialist arguments about how women are more emotional, how women are less irrational, how women are also physically weaker than men. Right. And this is where we have to say this is exactly the sorts of behaviors and discrimination that has ever stopped women from taking the top positions in in just about every office that has been out there, because they're seen as less capable. We beg to differ, right? The fact is, just because that you are physically weaker, sure, fine. So we won't hold, even if we accept that you're physically weaker, but then we have to understand that top jobs in the military don't require you to be very physically strong to begin with. In fact, they do so even far less than the ordinary foot soldier, right? Because it's administrative matters that you have to settle. This is basically the kinds of things. If you want to take the essentialist argument, women are supposed to excel at planning things, at planning things, and handling logistical matters with other people. A lot of it, basically, you also have to broker lots of deals with lots of people. You have to handle and talk to lots of people. Again, things women are supposedly naturally very good at. If we accept your essentialist arguments, then we say that women are even more capable for these jobs than men really are, right? Because and we say, even if we reject all essentialist arguments, we believe that there's enough meritocracy out there to ensure that the best person gets the best. We would like to believe that there's basically enough meritocracy out there, but we don't think there is. That's why we need our policy to begin with. Second point, does meritocracy exist, right? And this is where they argue that, there's a reason why we trust men to be our CEOs and things like that, because they're better than us. And we say that this is right now, we are in the last stages. I'm assuming we're talking about developed countries and obviously not countries like India. Well, this is basically, we are in the last vestiges of the third wave of feminism. What does this mean? This means that largely institutional discrimination has been gotten rid of. Now this pernicious kinds of discrimination is exactly what we need to fight, and is exactly the hardest thing, therefore, we need to fight, right? Because people already think the feminist movement is over, we don't need it anymore. We see this happening whenever earlier this year when girls in the Glasgow debate circuit tried to talk about feminist things, tried to talk about how it's shameful that they were booed and things like that. And men responded, but you girls have all your rights already. We say no. We say that for as long as women are paid less while they are in the same job as men, that movement is not over. We see that as long as the woman's job is not valued and the work that she contributes is not as much as men, they are not. They said that they're fine with putting women, they're fine with promoting a woman, she's superwoman, right? And this is why we had to argue that's not fair. Because for a woman to be promoted into these kinds of high-ranking jobs, she has to be superwoman. While the men just have to be men. We don't think this is fair to the women. We don't think that, and this is where they didn't do my whole characterization on how basically women have to work so much harder than men to get into the same positions at which they are at. And even when they do get into these positions, they tend to be belittled all the time. Yes?
So in your case, how can you change the conception of the male in the military? They believe that those women will have the ability to do it when you reserve the quota for them.
No, clearly they don't believe women are capable of doing it. That's why any woman who even gets to the top to begin with is belittled all the time. Her work contributions aren't contributed. We are able to at least get the woman to the top now. That's why we have quotas. That's why we ensure, like in Japan, which is one of the most sexist developed countries there is now, and has got quotas for women within parliament. At least the women get up there. The women show to the men that they're just as capable, if not more capable than men, and the men have to admit it because there are a larger number of them that they can't be kicked out at any whim of the men's. And the work they produce is generally really, really good. So that's how we're able to basically prove that women. That's how we're basically able to change the attitudes. It's working in quite a few countries. We'll go with that. Third point: whether or not this is unfair for qualified men, and this is where they would like to argue that basically women are stealing jobs from the more capable men, and this is where we argue that's not true, right? Because generally in the military, and as I've stated within my characterization, women have to be fairly exceptional to be able to go into the army to begin with, and generally in all these sorts of very, very dick-dominated areas, the women always feels the need to work a lot harder, to put in a lot more time than men. So most of the time really they're more qualified than the men are for the position, but they don't get it anyway because, as I said, the contributions just don't matter to the military. That's how deep set that patriarchal mindset is. And then we basically see that even if we accept that perhaps one or two men who may have perhaps been more qualified for the women simply because there are the sheer number of men who are in there compared to the number of women, perhaps they are less capable women, we say this is a harm we're perfectly willing to take. Why? Because our long-term goal is one that's far better, right? Because it means that in the future, more women, and more, especially the capable women, are more willing to stay within the army because it's a safer and healthier environment that which we create. We see in future there will then be a surplus of capable women who are able to get these jobs. That's the kind of things that we want, right? Because we are also, so basically at the end of the day, because we stand for feminism, because we stand for the rights and equality of women, I am extremely proud to propose.
Thank you very much for that speech. We now invite the second speaker from the opening opposition team to deputy lead the proposition.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Speakers, today our opening governments failed to prove to us that how in their policy they will change the conception of those kind of military, the male soldiers or the male management team. They will not discriminate the women. The fundamental problem here is that it is the perception already existed in the man their mind, and then that's why we need to fundamentally change their mind. It's better than to just reserve the quota for the top ranks. That actually, even if you reserve a certain amount of quota, but still take out the majority, take up the majority control is still the male, and then actually the female they're saying it is not so significance to be hurted, and also the whole situation will not change. And also my partner have told you that actually in your model already is making the condition is more worse because the men feel that it is unfair because it is even if I have the quality, but still because you are the female, so that's why you can get the position here. For the plan that say that because in the current status quo, if you as a female you want to get up to the top rank of the military, you need to have a much hierarchy to do with it. But we are saying that even if it is the case that we cannot, we still think that it is potentially is good, because if you just reserve a certain amount of quota for the female, which means that the female only need to compete within the female. They only need to do the best within the female. They do not know. They do not need to compete with the male because I already get the quota from the top management. And then I already to do it. I can do it. So it is not benefit to the military itself. Also, it is not benefit for the self improvement for the female here. And then we need to prove the whole world that hey, we have the ability to do so. So that's why we are saying that under your policy, you didn't solve anything. You are just simply reserve a quota, giving the female have the chance to to control the military, but still you are fair to prove to the male that we have the ability to do so. So what's your point?
I gave you Japan as an example where this policy has worked. Yeah, tell me, how the hell are you going to change the mindsets of men then?
Firstly, we are saying that we better than to just reserve the quota for the female. We will inspire. We will give them more training. Give them the male to tell them that, to let them to understand it. Why it is the female also will have the same quality as a man. Also, they are good at, just like what she said, that the female good at communication. So many top rank or management don't need a lot of physical ability here, but we need to know, let the male understand this situation. So in the military, it's different from any other organization. You need to know that the foreigners need to understand that why this woman deserve this place, why I need to listen to them, because when there is a military orders, all the followers, they need to follow it. They need to take their orders in terms of this. So that's why we say that if we can fundamentally change the people's stereotype, it's better than just under your policy that you are just reserving the quota. However, the quota, it doesn't mean that the women have enough say in the high management. At the end of the day, the high management is the man as a majority. And also for the second point is that we are saying that because a military, actually they need to know that if the female actually is failed to have the disqualification, however she gets up to take up this post, what is the consequence for the whole military? Firstly, we are saying that both of herself or also is bad for the whole military. But firstly, for herself, because under a so harsh environment or under this environment, all the male actually disagree with all her opinion, even if her opinion is valuable here. But because they just say that you doesn't have your ability to get this post, you are just simply a woman. That's why we need to give you a post here. So that's why it is what she think, what she voice out, actually do not value for any man to take up this one. And the second point is that even if for the military it is also not good, because the people don't believe on the high level management, the female, to what they see, what they what they think or what they propose here, and then they just actually to object the female what they say, because I don't think you have such performance that I need to believe on you. Because we are saying that even if in the high level management their work, it is not so difficult, it's not like really to go into the world, but however it is a kind of planning. How can you get promoted to be the planner? We need to, you have the practical experiences in the war also. So that's why the foreigners, they will think that you understand my situation, you understand the practical situation. It's not just reading a book and then I just like a professor, like a girl, you never go into the war before. However, you just, because you're a girl, you are very good at communication, writing reports. So that's why you can get the position, as long as I can be the best of the other female in the military. That's the point that we don't want to see in the military. Military is something that's to defend our country. It is not just a kidding thing, that it is not just like an organization that we even is have broke the whole thing. It doesn't mean that military, we need to protect the whole citizen here. So everyone's lives is in here. We are not just so that's why how the foreigners they obey to their top level, and also how under our situation that we want to provide more to tell them, the males say that, hey, actually women have this good thing, we need to utilize it. We should not just because of the discrimination, so that's why we should depress them. We say that it's from fundamentally change is better than you are just reserve a quota that actually will increase the more hatred from the man, and actually it is not good for at the end of the day, both for the military, also for the female self-growth. So that's why we opposition opposed.
Right, thank you very much. We now invite the first speaker from Closing Governments, Member of Government.
Thank you all. So first, I'd like to give some rebuttals. As for the stereotype that now here is the man dominant world, so women cannot have the same cannot afford the ability of military job. We would like to say that this is what value matters, because now it's the man dominant world and we have the stereotype, and if you adopt that measure that you need to change people's stereotype, people's mind to change the situation, I think that to an extent is kind of useless measure, because as we know, culture is it is formed. What culture forms needs a long period, and it's very hard to change one's belief, and because of the culture he has when he through his upbringing. And for this, if we if you do want to change people's mind, then you should see a person's that he or she is capable of doing some job like this in the military. If you want to others see that woman is capable, then you should give her a chance to prove that she has the capability. But under the stereotype in man dominant today, woman has the harsh environment for this. So the government should give the chance by some compulsory by some policy to encourage to change the stereotype by providing a quota for women in the top ranks in military that will provide women a chance to perform that they have the capability in the military work. So the man will believe that she has the capability as well. And we should clarify that men and women have different characteristics, and so we need different standards for men and women. So that's why in Olympic Games we have different standards for the men and women's races. So if you wanted to encourage, you want to let the woman to that high ranks by competing with men in the same standard, that is irrational decision. So now comes to my extension. The first one is the justification that we need to promote equality for the woman to prevent gender discrimination. So let's take a look at the job recruitment. Nowadays, that we get a piece of news from the China Daily that female executives working from 26 to 60 years old receiving 142,000 pounds less in bonuses less than a man at the same level. So that means that we do have the gender discrimination in our society. So let's think that in the military we now since we have the stereotype that that's a man dominant world. So there's no denying that there is a gender discrimination in the military. So to prevent gender discrimination, we need provide a quota. So yeah, what's the point?
Yeah, we agree that there is a discrimination. There is a strong stereotype between women and men. But under your policy, you are saying that if this case that you reserve the quota, you give the unfairness for the male feeling, and then why they will have to change those kind of perception when it is so strong? Even if they have the female have the ability, they won't believe it.
I'm sorry, can you brief it into a question?
That's it.
Okay, so I believe that your question is to ask that women Sorry.
No.
Okay. So this is my presentation. Next comes to consider whether women have the capability of the work. So let's see that in a broader sense. So let's take a look at the characteristic of women. So women can breastfeed and can pregnant, and men and have other maybe physically stronger than women. But can they pregnant or can they something like breastfeeding? That they cannot. So that means that in our society we have different work assigned. So it cannot deny that women can make decisions more cautiously and do some mentally work more with their more carefulness capability. You can take a look at that many accountants and babysitters with the job which needs more careful work are women. So in this sense, we can conclude that if we provide a quota for women in the top ranks in military, then we'll provide a diversity of ideas which can lead to better decisions in the military work based on the different characteristics which will have different contribution to make a better decision. So to conclude, based on the justification and the characteristics of women and advantage of women, and also the diversity of ideas from both men and women, leading to potentially better decisions, we government propose as a support to impose a quota for women in the top ranks in military. So, thanks.
Right, thank you very much. I now invite the first speaker of closing opposition, the member of opposition.
Mr. Speaker, in today's debate, it seems that the government side have always seems that they are arguing for that we are just our opposition side is resisting women from going to the top rank in the military. But in fact we are just resisting the idea of imposing a quota, but not the possibility for the women to go into the top rank in the military. And it is, I mean that we are not denying that women can use their ability and can use their intelligence to get in and use their power, their own intelligence to get into that rank, that position. So we think the government side is kind of biased in this point. And first of all, I would like to give two rebuttals to my previous speaker. First of all is that she mentioned that because in the status quo it is the man then who is dominating dominating the military. So the government should make some change and impose this quota. But why? Because military itself, the nature of military, it is not a place of safety. It's not a place of not a place for you to enjoy your life, but a place of aggression, a place of bloody. So it is historically and naturally more suitable for men to stay in. So discrimination is the eradication of discrimination towards women. It is kind of impossible because naturally and physically, man is more suitable to stay and more suitable. And as I mentioned, that we are not resisting women that have great ability to stay. Yeah. And we are not denying the fair competition. And what's more, we don't understand why we should keep more and more women, as the Prime Minister said, more and more women to stay in the army. Because is it just for the protection, or is it just for a safer place for them to stay and to maintain them in the army? We don't see the necessity for them to stay there because we don't see the necessity, and this problem hasn't solved yet. And the second rebuttal is that my previous speaker said that the careful words the careful words are always done by women because they naturally can down that kind of words right, and she promotes the diversity in the army and in the top rank. But actually there are women in the top rank nowadays, right? But just and this kind of woman who is not so familiar with the war, with the real situation that happened in the real military. So as long as there are women that taking charge into several positions in the high rank, then that's enough. When it's not necessary for to impose such a quota. And here comes my extension. And here comes my first extension. What is the real protection? What is the real protection of women, and what is the real good step to eradicate the kind of so-called discrimination towards women when in military? We don't think that imposing a quota is a better way to reduce this kind of discrimination, because it is only the policy that helping the women to raise their position, but not themselves, but not their real ability and power. So the real protection for women to stay firmly in the military is to let themselves shine and let themselves to show the same remark, to show the same performance compared to the men, to let them really show to the society that they can do the same job that the man can. So this is the real protection for women, but not just simply impose a policy to simply just seems that it is just a simply protecting the woman, but actually it is not. And the second extension is that because in the status quo, most of the soldiers, especially the soldiers who's fighting in the front line, are men, right? And the women actually they're just doing the things that is at the back. For example, the cookings, the organizing, and other things that is not so aggressive, right? So actually, if a woman just sitting on the top rank, and how can she just guide and lead the man who is in a lower position of her? Because the man is not going, because the woman is not experienced of what no experience of what the man is experiencing in the front line, right? So the woman is not likely to have the same feeling, and not likely to make a very suitable policy to the man who is in the front line. So it is not So it is not suitable for. So she's not likely to make very suitable policies for the whole military. So it is not good for such a group of women to stay in this top rank. And what's more, the third one is about justification. Just like our opening house has said that if it is not justified for the man, because if these two persons can perform the same remark, why can they receive the same position? And we can imagine such a picture that if there is a woman and there is only one empty vacant position in the top rank, and there's a man and a woman who is just competing for that position, but because of this kind of quota, so we just automatically recruit the women into this position instead of the men. So it is really obviously very injustified to have this quota, because it's not based on their real ability, but just because of this policy. So based on this, we are so proud to oppose. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We now invite the final speaker, from the government bench, the government way.
Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. First, I want to give some of my rebuttal to the previous speaker's speech. The previous speaker seemed to assume that there is unnecessary to put women in a military high rank job. But the truth is that what the ranks itself is. What it is in fact. It is in fact a job. What grounds have you depended that you cannot give more opportunities to women, but for acquiring this job? It is in fact a job, a management job. Okay. And then the second rebuttal is that how can you assume that a woman she haven't go to any fighting many battle, and then she will certainly fail know how to manage the army and the troops? Do you really think that Tim Cook know how to the procedure, the step to produce iPhone, iPads? He is just a manager of Apple company. He is not a worker in the factory of Foxconn. Okay, so this is my rebuttal. And here, I first I want to support my partner's points and then go to clarify today's debate clashes. As my partner has said that we are giving a woman a certain quota in the army because we want to send a message to the society that women can do the job well, and we certainly not, as the opposition side keep saying that women they are just they have this priority and they don't need any test, they don't need any necessary skills, so they seem to assume that women are fool. They just have this priority and they can get a job in the army. Definitely not. Our government have said that women they also have to compete, and our troops we also have some women official qualification test for them to test if they will be suitable for working in troops. And we definitely not sending those unskilled and women don't have any basic ideas of management or things like that. Sorry. And once this woman they successfully survive and play an important role in the troops, then they are successful examples, and the society can say that even in this first perceived bad conditions, women can still doing a good job, as our government side has mentioned a Japan example that they still can excel in this field, and this is military, and then the people in the society, those emperor, they will see that women they also can do some jobs that men can do so as well, and the situation in the society that many top executives, it tends to be male. By these successful women examples, this condition can gradually change. We are gradually change people's minds on women, and then when people's minds, their awareness, their perceive, their rooted thoughts gradually change. I mean, this discrimination is gradually be eliminated.
What?
Sorry. Okay, take a point.
There already exists female presidents in a lot of countries. We are saying that, but this female president is not just because of the reserve quota. It's because what she done, what is her ability.
Okay. Don't explain. No explain. I will explain in my questions to you. The first question we are debating here is that whether women are capable of holding of having these jobs. The opposition side seem to assume that the jobs in the top ranks in military they are heavy physically. They require the strong women. They must be as strong as men. Come on, this is strategical. This is logical job here. It does not require any physical stress as long as women they have those management, they have those logical, and they have those strategy to provide for the troops to win the battles. That's enough. Not how can the opposition side argue that women are not capable? Our governments definitely say that women are totally capable of doing these jobs. It is not beyond women's ability. The question too is that they whether quoting a quota is able to solve the problem in the society of female discrimination. As I have mentioned, that we are going to give women more opportunity in working in militaries, and women they can prove to the society that they are able to, because they have already have those trainings that are required for women. They are qualified to do that, and they will be. And once they're successful, people will change their minds on women and see that women they also can do this job so well. So the total society jobs hiring that tends to be changed, and people tends to hire more women to go into the higher ranks in the corporation. So we mean that this quota it will have to eliminate the women discrimination. And the third question is whether it's just for men and women to have this priority. We mean that women they are not supposed to have the same physical test as men, because as we can see many fields as the Olympic Games, they're divided in women weightlifting and men weightlifting, and this is and Olympic Games represent justice, and we now here we also have a standard for women, and women are also, and it is justice here. So for all this we are proud to propose.
Thank you very much for the final speech of this debate, and now I invite the opposition group.
Mr. Speakers and ladies and gentlemen, in here we're not saying that women are stupid, women are fool. We are talking about that women in the top rank, they may not equip it, and also they are not qualified to get that position. If we have quota in this case, we think that the quota is actually harmful to the whole military system, and also harmful to the soldier, and also harmful to the women. And we will analyze in this way too. First, the opening document say that it's for the protection of the women, it's for the safety of the women. If the women do such kind of heavy jobs, so those women in the top, they will protect them. But however, she never proved me there is a linkage between how those women in the top rank will protect those women in the lower class. We don't think that is necessary, and also we don't think that is possible, because the majority of the women majority of the military is still male soldiers. So in this case, even though the women in the top rank, their focus is still the male soldiers instead of a woman in that case. So secondly, we want to say that the closing government, they mentioned that there is test, but however, if the test is the women, all the women in the troops, they failed the test, they are not qualified for that job. So there is still a problem. There is still a problem that if we have quota, we still need to give the woman the position. That means we need to lower down the standard to select a people who is suitable for the top rank case. So in here, we are thinking that it's actually lower down the quality of the top rank in the military, and we think it's detrimental to the whole military system in that case. And first, we want to say that the clashes here is like we have two clashes today. So the first one is about the status quo that we mentioned about, and second one we want to say about whether the model will work or not. So before that, Antoine? Okay.
We see that mandatory conscription, female conscription in Israel means that there's a huge number of women within the army. This also means it's a safer environment for them. They get respect. They get also the same kinds of experiences men have on the field. We want to create exactly that same kind of environment for women by having quotas. Deal with my point that basically we do that within my society.
So before we think about there is a large amount of women in the military, is it that really that population is just our society that 5 to 5? Maybe there is only 2%, 20% of the female in the military system. So we think that those women we need to take into consider. But however, we think that the male military in the top rank, they still concerned about that kind of female in that case. We think that it's still possible for those male high management to manage that case. So moving on to my clashes today. So firstly, we think that there is a uniqueness of the military that we need physically strong people who is good at machine, and also that's all the distinctions about men, and that's the fact that the population of the military is that the male is far more. The numbers of male are far more than female in that case. It's quite opposite to your case that proposed that in Japan that the senator they give you a quota of the senator that belongs to a woman, because our social society is that the population is 5 to 5 is equal. It's equal in that case, and even though it's still very few amount of female senators in the Japan parliament, so it's not proven that your example is exactly the right one. And secondly, we want to say that how the men get promoted is quite different for the male promoted. The male, they need to use their life, they need to risk their life, they need to use their experience, the credible experience in their military life, and then they need to have status and command each of the battles to gain respect from their soldier, and that's why men they are getting promoted so quickly. And after that, we think that the women get promoted because they are doing the different kind of job, such as singer, such as cleaning, such as some administration. They don't need to risk their life. And actually, there is difference in here. We think those are actually why we are very differentiate why the woman and the man they belongs to the different promoted method. So we think that in here, if you give a quota for the woman to say for the woman in the top rank, which is mainly about the static or training, which the woman is not ever touch about those aspects, and the woman is not qualified for that. So how can you guarantee that those women in the high rank they can have the proper and also advanced technique and training for those systems, because we think that the whole military basics is based on those training. It's the key of the military. So we don't think that will guarantee the woman that will not guarantee the whole quality of the military. So in here, we think that it's very dangerous for giving a quota to the woman in that stated course. So we think the stated course she mentioned is not correct. So second, we want to talk about why the model under our policy is still work and their model is not working. Because we think first we have incentive. The incentives still live inside, because we think that if the woman is quite suitable for the administration work, and the leader can think about whether we can put that on that position or whether we will put a man on the position. If he is more better, and the leader will select him, we still think there is incentive inside. And second, we don't think that there is protection, protection for the woman, since that the population of the soldier is still the majority of the soldier is still male, so the focus may be male. And third, I want to say that why the quota is not necessary or even is harmful to the whole military situation. So we think that firstly, we think the male are dejected for the proportion of the women, even if they are quite suitable than the male, suitable than the female. And secondly, we think that the soldier do not listen to the female, because the female do not have the trainings with them, and also do not enter the battle with them. So we think that actually those soldiers, they do not respect them and do not listen to males' obedience. So it's actually harmful to the whole military. And third, we think that the women are still those qualified women who are suitable for those positions will be dissuaded by this kind of policy. So by that, we are very glad to propose.
Thank you very much. I invite all speakers across the floor.